Hello, fellow music maker. It is now time for us to touch upon an instrument that is very near and dear to my heart, which is called, of course, a violin. This is a Knilling violin, and we want you to know what we do to adjust these. You can see the little adjustment tag on there. What kind of adjustments take place at St. Louis Music for the Knilling violin before they come to you? If you want to know more, come with me. Understanding the difference between one brand of violin and another can be difficult. In today's world of machine-made mass production, many acoustic musical instruments, not just violins, but guitars, band instruments, and even pianos, can look alike to the average person. And sometimes they actually are, with the only difference being the label or brand that is put on it after it's built. Times have changed since generations ago when the Knilling string instrument brand was first introduced, but through it all, one thing has remained the same, and that's the Knilling Violin Adjustment Shop in St. Louis, Missouri. It's the very thing, or better yet, the very time-honored procedures that have been handed down through the years and continues to differentiate Knilling stringed instruments from all the others. Because no matter how well the instrument is built, the most important thing to the player is how well it plays and how well it sounds. And that's in how well it is prepared after the instrument arrives from the factory and before it is passed on to you. Now, these are all wonderful words, but they are still just words, and it's one thing to tell you, but quite another to show you. And that's what this production is all about. What you are about to see is the secret to Knilling's success. Something that has not changed through the years and will not change moving forward. Something that no machine can do, starting here. At Knilling String Instruments, every square inch of the violin, cello, or bass is first extensively scrutinized right out of the shipping crate. After traveling halfway around the world, the craftsman in charge of the initial inspection holds the lofty responsibility of approving or rejecting the instrument right there before any additional work is done. Part of this initial process is the removal of the factory strings, the detachment of the factory tailpiece, and a visual inspection that includes a detailed search for any cracks, wood blemishes, or finish imperfections, along with a professional assessment of overall structural integrity. Having passed the initial test, we will now follow this same violin through the entire process to give you a first-hand look at what every Knilling stringed instrument goes through before earning that Knilling Adjustment Certification tag. The next step is to check the surface of the fingerboard because, unbeknownst to most people, there has to be a dip or a dish, as our craftsman puts it, in the middle of the fingerboard to help eliminate string buzz. A process that, as you will see, is one that takes a steady hand, years of experience, and a lot of patience. Using the first of many custom-configured tools, our craftsman quickly displays how this wood shaver is actually a precision piece that efficiently removes layer after layer, allowing the gradual formation of a slight dip, or valley if you will, the length and depth of which can only be determined by the eye and the individual judgment of the person performing the procedure. Layer after layer is patiently removed, with periodic checks between to make sure not too much or not too little is taken off, and that the surface of the wood remains level throughout the process. These fingerboards are made of ebony, a very hard and dense wood, so to say that this procedure takes a lot of time and concentration would be an understatement. But it's only the beginning of what each fingerboard goes through, because the next step is the rigorous hand sanding of the entire surface to eliminate the rough edges that can remain from the shaving tool, and to bring the fingerboard surface back to its original smooth feel for easy playing. This hand sanding also includes the nut, where the strings touch the instrument at the headpiece as they make their way to the tuning pegs. The nut slots that secure and space the strings are then hand-fitted at different depths and different widths because each string is a different size, so each slot has to be a precise match. All of this shaving, sanding, and filing is done by hand, and only a small part of an overall step-by-step, time-honored process that helps to make each instrument develop a unique feel and personality of its own. Finally, the ebony is finished and protected with a dark stain that brings out the beauty of the wood and adds a deep luster to the fingerboard. The headpiece tuners are next, and while they start out from the factory as any pegs you might see on other violin brands, watch the adjustment process here at Knilling Stringed Instruments. Each piece is first removed and treated with a peg compound to help lessen the friction, making them easier to turn. They arrive from the factory with flat ends, and tradition has it that each peg needs to fit snugly, be at the proper length, and have a tapered end, which is not an easy thing to do since these are also made of ebony. If the peg is too long and sticks out of the opposite end of the headpiece, it is measured and then cut down to the proper size on a bandsaw, leaving a flat, sharp edge that has to be eliminated. So it is then inserted into a drill with a tempered steel attachment that works like a pencil sharpener to smooth out the sharp edge and give it a nice taper. This is the sort of treatment that you will find on violins costing thousands of dollars, but it is a common procedure with Knilling Stringed Instruments. Even the Knilling label is installed with extra care and consideration by handwriting the all-important identification information on each individual piece, and by not relying only on a machine-applied adhesive, but by actually also coating the paper by hand with industrial-grade wood glue to make sure it will stay securely in place for generations to come. The tailpiece is custom fit to the violin by first adjusting the length of the tail gut that connects it to the lower bout of the instrument. After turning these adjustment pieces and making a few test runs to make sure the fit is perfect, the terminations are actually burned with an open flame to melt the material into place for a more permanent fit, and then lightly pulled over the end of the instrument where it can be allowed to stretch into place naturally after the strings are attached. This Knilling violin calls for 4 fine tuners that are installed between the tailpiece and the strings. Another procedure that can only be accomplished by hand. These tiny devices allow the player to more accurately pinpoint the exact tuning of the string after it is pulled up close to pitch using the tuning pegs at the headpiece of the instrument. On other violins, the sharp metal of these fine tuners can actually cut into the soft wood of the violin top, making permanent scratches and even deep gouges over time, but not so with Knilling, because of these unique, soft, rubberized sleeves called Bushman tuners, named after the inventor, Jim Bushman, who is the supervisor of the Knilling adjustment shop. Now we are ready to install fresh strings. Strings on Knilling instruments are of the highest quality and available in different thicknesses and tensions depending on the specifications called for. With a thick string, you will get more volume and more center to the tone. With a thin string, you will get a brighter sound with less carrying power. Regardless of the preference, this installation process is yet another one that is done according to tradition and can only be accomplished by hand. There's even a traditional color scheme to the upper winding to help identify each violin string, with red for G, yellow for D, black for the A string, and green for the high E. Finally, a new chin rest is hand adjusted and then fitted to this individual violin before the instrument is then hand carried into the next room for even more painstaking preparation before it can qualify to wear that all-important Knilling adjustment certification tag. We are heading into the Knilling Stringed Instrument Repair and Woodworking Shop, where the single most important aspect of any violin, cello, or bass is addressed, that being the sound, or more precisely, the transfer of the string vibrations to the instrument where the sound comes from. The optimum transfer of string vibration is the result of a 2-part installation process, starting with the sound post. This process begins with a sound post measuring tool to help determine the distance from the top to the back from the inside. They will then compare each end of the sound post to this measuring tool, mark it, and then push each end up against a straight edge belt sander to remove the wood down to the marks. This straight edge sander also helps to ensure that the sound post tip is perfectly level, so the entire surface comes in contact with the inside top and back of the instrument for maximum string vibration transfer. A sharp metal tool is then carefully pushed into the side of the sound post. It is then picked up and even more carefully lowered through the F-hole, where it is turned and then positioned so that it is wedged between the top and back, not too tight that it would have the potential to crack the wood from the pressure, and not too loose that it might fall out of position in the future. Finally, we are now going to witness the preparation and installation of what many experts will tell you is the single most important piece in terms of overall performance, the bridge. The feet of the bridge, where it touches the top of the instrument, arrive with a flat base from the factory, but the belly of a violin is curved, so the feet of each and every bridge have to be custom shaped to fit each and every individual violin. Sandpaper is taped to the curved violin surface, and the bridge is then moved over the surface of this stationary sandpaper so the curvature of the feet become a perfect match, which means the entire surface will now come in contact with the top for maximum string vibration transfer. A template is then used to trace and mark the proper curve of the top of the bridge where it touches the strings, and then it's pushed against another straight-edge sander until the edge matches this curve all the way down to where it's marked. This newly formed edge is then tapered to provide more of a pinpoint contact, allowing as much of the string to vibrate as possible when it is bent over this edge. Not surprisingly, hand sanding is required to further remove any unnecessary thickness of the wood and to fine-tune the edge into the perfect pinnacle. Now a razor-sharp blade is used to taper the legs between the bridge and the feet, not too much to compromise the strength, not too little to leave any unnecessary mass that can compromise string vibration transfer. This is a tedious procedure, one that is completely up to the judgment of the luthier and, you guessed it, one that can only be performed properly by the human hand. The slots that hold the strings in place are then further notched and perfected, and the finished bridge, custom shaped to this particular instrument, is then placed between the strings and the top, and becomes one in the formation of a perfect union of traditional beauty and optimum performance. The end result is an instrument that delivers generations of tradition, old-world craftsmanship, and a second-to-none adjustment process deserving of the Knilling stringed instrument name.